What are the normative or ethical commitments of liberalism? That's the question we want to get at right now. To recap briefly, the basic argument of liberalism in various forms is that conflict is avoidable. It's not inevitable. The prisoner's dilemma can be solved. The security dilemma can be mitigated. So the essential ethical commitment of liberalism is that if those bad things can be avoided, that's what you should do, or you should at least try. So the imperative is to avoid conflict or to cooperate where you can. States should cooperate to avoid war, to trade freely, to combat climate change, and so on. Right? From the liberal perspective, there are a lot of things that you can solve only by cooperating. Climate change would be a great example of that. There are other things where other places, and trade is a good example, where trade wars, they're going to argue, don't really do anybody good. They make everybody poor and so on. So the basic argument is that almost always we're better off when we cooperate with one another. And so that's what we should be focused on doing. Now, to be clear, liberalism doesn't deny that there are conflicts of interest, but again, they're going to say that even when there are conflicts of interest, real conflicts, negotiated solutions are better than conflict. Wherever it is that you were going to get at the end of a war or a trade war or whatever, if you negotiated that same outcome without fighting the war, right, you'd be a lot better off. And so liberalism, even in cases of tough conflicts of interest, are going to say, still find the best way through it as opposed to fighting. So from this perspective, liberalism really sees a possibility of progress, right? And to contrast it with realism, realism sees the basics of the international system, such as anarchy and the security dilemma, as enduring and insurmountable, and I might add immutable, right? You can't really change them even if you want to. And to try to change them, realists say, is naive and potentially dangerous. Liberalism sees the possibility of progress, at least in managing the security dilemma, and perhaps even in eliminating the security dilemma altogether. And in that sense, this is probably the sense in which liberalism in the international realm begins to seem something like liberalism in the domestic realm, which is this idea that progress is possible. We can do better, rather than we're stuck with the same old things. So one of the interesting questions to get at, both in terms of realism and in terms of liberalism, is in what ways do their explanations of how the world works shape their normative positions or shape their ethics?